All right, so welcome everyone. I'm Kara, I'm from Boston Women's Market. I'm really excited to be here for part 2 of our Make It, Map It marketing series. Today we're going to be talking about building your brand and story. So if you haven't registered for part 3, that's going to be on May 2nd, and you can register on our website. These workshops is a 3-part series, and we're hoping that there'll be building blocks that you guys can take in parts and work upon. You should have also received your market or your workshop workbook in the email I sent with the login info. If anyone doesn't have that, I can plop it into the chat again so you can download it. And you're welcome to save it to your computer. So without further ado, I'm going to do a couple quick housekeeping things. Cameras, you're totally welcome to keep them off if you'd like. We love to see everyone's faces, but definitely optional. When you want to ask a question, please feel free to unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and maybe say the name of your business. But then if you're not comfortable with that, you can totally just use the chat to plop any questions or comments that you have in the chat, and we'll get to those as the workshop goes on. So today we're joined by the co-founders of Bloom Collective. So Heather is a former teacher turned co-founder of Bloom Collective, and she's the owner of Island Vintage on Martha's Vineyard. She has a passion for supporting and empowering small businesses and is committed to fostering growth and community collaboration. And Savannah, some of you might recognize Savannah from the Boston Women's Market family. She is a RISD grad student turned entrepreneur, and she's the founder of Sir Milky Quartz and co-founder of Bloom Collective. She believes in crafting a life you want believes in crafting the life you want, starting with what you do every day, and brings expertise on branding, storytelling, product photography, e-commerce, and wholesale strategy. So we're super excited to have you both here. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with the Boston Women's Market family. And I will hand it over to you both.
Awesome. Thank you, Kara. Super excited to be here. I am, definitely really excited to be essentially teaching this workshop series with Boston Women's Market. I've vended a lot with you guys over the years, so I hope I see some friendly faces tonight. Like Kara said, I am the owner of Sir Milky Quartz and the co-founder of Bloom. Essentially I have a handmade line as well as a curated vintage line as well. And I'm so excited to be here with you all.
Awesome. And thank you guys again for being here. Like Kara said, my name is Heather, also co-founder of Bloom. My other business, Island Vintage. You can find me on Martha's Vineyard if you're ever out for a little bit of a seasonal trip. Definitely feel free to stop by. I curate a vintage clothing selection for men and women. I also do a little bit of retail design. And like Kara mentioned, I was a former teacher, so I am very excited to join you guys today and to teach a little bit. I always love going back to my roots for this, and this is something we really strive for at Bloom, is to do a lot of small business education. So if there's anything that you guys are ever wanting to know that we haven't touched on or that you haven't seen touched on elsewhere, definitely shoot us an email because I'm sure you're not the only one, and we really love to kind of see what people are needing to learn, and we're happy to provide that. So thank you guys for being here. Alrighty, and as you guys know, this is a 3-part series. We are right in the middle at building your brand. We do have one more class after this, and on that class in particular, we're really excited to focus on really getting you guys a full tangible marketing plan. So that way we can really put the 2 last classes together and come out with some awesome action steps for marketing your business. As you guys remember, last class, we really focused on understanding who your audience is. And this one, we're really going to dial in how to communicate to those individuals. So we are really looking forward to building on that.
All right. Okay, so as Heather kind of mentioned a little bit during last class, we definitely dove into creating our target demographic personas, which will help you all feel comfortable with and ready to put that persona to work in your marketing, which we're kind of going to get those gears turning today. With this workshop in particular, we're going to take the next step in understanding how this effectively, how to effectively essentially reach the customer that we defined last class. It'll be through this thing, which we all know very well, called branding. And hopefully, you've definitely seen it before. It's everywhere you look. And then this class really helped to define essentially what that means and what that means in a marketing context. Essentially, branding is the approach to the visuals that we choose for our business and the way that we talk about it, which helps us actually connect with our target customer. These indicators will not only decide what that person is interested in, but also whether or not they're going to purchase that product or service. So during this workshop, we really hope that you'll use the provided workshop. So if you can have it available, that would be great. And we're going to go through the basics and then have you jump in with some practical application towards the end. So just take notes. We'll definitely have some time for questions and working on things together.
And so the main part of this class that we're really going to be focusing on, like Savannah said, is really the workshop series. We're going to create a memorable tagline, a logo, and a marketing email, and then we're really going to go forward with kind of exploring exactly what branding is and what audience perception is. So branding itself is really a combination of all of the aspects that make up the appearance of your business. When we say appearance, I personally like to think about what you consider the appearance of a person to be. It's not necessarily just somebody's face that you're looking at when you're making a decision about them, but rather we really look at how they dress, how they speak, their hair, how they present themselves. The list really goes on. But essentially, the point is that somebody's appearance is considered a makeup of so many different factors, and your brand is the exact same thing. It's not just your name or your logo, it's rather your business's appearance holistically to your customers.
All right, so we're going to chat a little bit about what actually makes up the elements of your branding. So essentially, you can think about branding as all of the key indicators that are triggered when experiencing a business. So it's easy to think about this in the context of shopping in person, I think. So like when you walk into a store, what does it feel like to shop in their space? What does the signage look like? What are the smells like, the lighting? And then how do those elements translate digitally in terms of color usage, graphics, the style of their photos, the way text is used, and essentially what their business is saying. So all of these things are really, really heavily considered when kind of pulling all these branding elements together through, essentially through the the in-person shopping experience to the digital experience. It's all meant to be very, very fluid, and they're trying to get one very key and succinct message across so that you know exactly what to expect when you're shopping with them, essentially. So taking a step back, there are some key pillars to consider when building a brand around your business, such as your logo, which we've all seen before. And if you don't have one already, that's fine too. Definitely a good first step. The tone of your voice, how you actually talk about your business, and what words are you using. The use of color, are you using no color? Are your colors super vibrant? Are they pastel? Are they, is there one pop of color that's meant to signify something specific? So there's a whole lot of stuff that you can essentially do with that. The font you choose and the story behind your brand, how are all of these elements kind of coming together and, essentially adding up? It's kind of like an equation to something bigger than just, one single thing that really, really make up the basis of your brand. So these elements are essentially how your consumers will recognize you and do actually create a lasting impression. A lot of times, there might be a symbol that you can just identify with a brand kind of right away. It's almost like taking something that's not really, in real life doesn't really mean much of anything, but then all of a sudden kind of adding all this messaging, adding all of this like context to that thing or to that image or to that sound or smell, it becomes something that, that person all of a sudden is like, ooh, I remember that brand.
And if you do remember, these are 3 of the brands that we did touch base on last class. They're some of our favorites for looking at businesses with a really great brand presence. Harley Davidson, for example, if you've ever been inside of a Harley Davidson store, it's unmistakable where you are. Even if you took away all of the Harley Davidson lettering, you still feel like you're in a Harley Davidson store. Their website, their digital presence, their print materials, and anything else that they use for marketing feels the same way. If you take away the name, you could still have a pretty good chance of understanding who was actually producing those materials. They're hyper-focused on representing their story through their branding, and it's evident even down to the pop-up ads on their website. We took a look at all these websites just to make sure that their branding was really succinct, and Harley Davidson in particular has an email list that clicks, join when you go to sign up for it. So that's where you can kind of see that every little bit of messaging, all of their copy or their text is really in line with what they want their brand to represent. Olipop, almost in direct contrast to Harley, has a very feminine and punchy feel and color scheme for their branding. And that's really evident in not just their marketing, but in their packaging as well, because it really is just kind of a whole neat little box tied up with a bow for this branding aspect. And just like Harley, they too have figured out the best ways to pull in their branding and their copy. They have a community blog that's titled the Olipop Digest, which is a nod to their digestion-friendly product. If you pay attention to that kind of stuff, it's actually really sweet. And you'll see a lot now that you maybe have your eyes open to looking at that. See where little brands like that are pulling in an ode to their mission in the actual text that they're using on their website or their marketing. And lastly, we have Trader Joe's, which is personally my fan favorite in the Bloom community. If you've ever been into Trader Joe's, I really now recommend taking a look at their website after this class. You'll immediately recognize the fonts, the style of the text, the graphic elements, the formatting of the sections. They have different sections that look like recipe books. It's really sweet, and it really ties in well to their branding that you see directly in store. I could really go on and on, but essentially I just want to highlight how seamless their branding is. So essentially everything that you see feels very authentic and unique to Trader Joe's. And that's the goal here. We want your business to feel uniquely your own and consistent across the board wherever you're represented and wherever your business is seen.
All right. So we're going to set off on a journey to find some strategies to essentially set your specific brand apart. So you definitely want to keep all these things in mind when thinking about your own business. All right, so where we're going to start, which I think is the best place to start in regards to branding and kind of defining your mission going forwards, is what is called a USP, or a unique selling proposition. Essentially, this starts with the core of what you do and how is undeniably unique and why customers come to you in the first place. So once you hone in on what this is, you can make sure it's baked into the messaging behind your brand. Maybe this thing impacts the tone of your writing, or perhaps it is how you come up with a tagline, which we're going to talk about in a moment. Essentially, it should be impactful and really clear to your audience, because if you can identify your value, so will your customers. And it's such an important thing to kind of keep in mind. So if you understand your value, so will your customers. So your unique selling proposition really is just a thing that is meant to set you apart from your competitors, tell people why you're special, and definitely, feel good about telling your customers that this is the reason why you're coming to me, and making sure that they're, that they really understand the value that they're getting from your business.
If you feel as though your business doesn't have a USP, that's something to really consider and try to focus on honing in on. I would definitely recommend trying to brainstorm different ways where you can figure out what your unique selling proposition could be if you don't feel like you have one. Or you can kind of just brainstorm and figure out maybe you do have a USP that you're really not pushing forward. Some of these brands are our favorite examples to look at, and their USPs are really kind of short, sweet, and to the point, but they're all really impactful. So Domino's, which we are all very familiar with, has kind of like a little bit of a tagline, but not so much that they use it on a totally regular basis. But the idea is that you get fresh, hot pizza delivered to your door in 30 minutes or less, or it's free. Domino's can't simply say, we have decent pizza at a decent price. Because lots of other pizza places could say the same thing, and it doesn't really make them unique or special. So they rightfully push the boundary a little bit to figure out their USP. And they said, okay, what can we do to stand out from the crowd? And delivering pizza in 30 minutes or less, or it's free, is a great way to do that. It also gets to a point where customers feel like that's almost too good to be true. So all of a sudden they're, chomping at the bits to get a piece of that, literally. And it really just goes to show that if you can find like a little bit of a unique point in your niche, you're really able to stand out from the crowd. Tom Shoes is another really amazing example. They are a feel-good for-profit company, which is not something that you always see. When you consider that they donate a pair of shoes for every pair sold, their unique selling proposition is not only unique, but it's actually really doing good for other people as well. And that makes you personally want to support their business. Especially when you look at comparing a few different types of shoes that you could potentially be purchasing. If Tom's is in the mix, you're much more likely to be inclined to purchase one of their shoes as opposed to like Steve Madden or something, for example. Sorry, Steve, but if you want to feel good about your purchase at the end of the day, you look at Tom's and you go, wow, that makes me feel really good about my choices. And that's part of their unique selling proposition. It's a great cause, but also it's like a little bit of marketing. So you'll see that in some of these things going forward, is that, it's something that makes a business special and it feels really organic and fun and easy. And you're like, wow, it's just amazing that they're doing this thing. But a lot of this was all very strategic for them to get you to buy their products. So just keep that in mind too. And Canva, which, kind of their USP is essentially they're empowering the world to design. It's currently one of my favorite larger companies. And that really explains why. We recommend Canva, Savannah and I personally, through Bloom, to so many small businesses because they've really worked to make graphic design more accessible as a medium for people with businesses or for people who don't do graphic design professionally. They've essentially made a user-friendly version of Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator all kind of wrapped up into one thing. It's really affordable. It's easy to use. They're constantly adding new features. I know we already have like somebody going, I love Canva. Me too. I think it's great. A few years ago, Canva was almost like looked down upon because people were trying to do graphic design and people were like a little bit weird about, the lay person getting into that space, but it's really honed in on their mission, making graphic design accessible to everybody. And people are really feeling good about the brand kind of going forward now. So if you look at all these guys here, you can kind of see that all of these brands have very unique aspects about their business that they've managed to highlight, and they can wrap up in a short little burp like this. And we really hope that you're able to do the same. We hope to kind of lead you in that direction where you can find out what's really unique about your business and how to just say it in like a really succinct way that your customers really want to support you right away.
Awesome. This leads us into the next strategy, which is essentially your brand story. So you need to just keep in mind with writing your brand story, you kind of first and foremost need to take a step back to identify where your personal story ends and where your business's begins. So often I know it feels very, very much the same. We totally get it. Being small business owners, you live, eat, breathe, all the things business all the time. And it feels like it's, because it is very much a part of you. But it is really important from a marketing standpoint to kind of find that point of separation. So essentially one day, if your business grows and you add more, people and you start hiring, new minds, new hands, or if you decide to sell your business in the future, the business should essentially be able to stand independently from you. And that's just a good business strategy. And also in terms of marketing, it allows you to kind of take a step back. It's definitely a little bit of a, being able to take that step back allows the creativity to flow, allows you to be less precious, to make stronger decisions, and essentially do things that are in the best interest of your business. The goal of that story is essentially that it conveys how, where you came from authentically. So that your customers really know where you are coming from and where you want to go. So they'll just get along on the ride with you and continue to, shop your brand, engage with your products and where your story is heading.
A couple of our personal favorite examples would be Ben & Jerry's and Patagonia, which are both brands that really stand for doing something good. You can kind of read a little bit on those story blurbs right there, but at the end of the day, Ben & Jerry's was created by childhood friends, Ben and Jerry, and they were a little bit quirky, but they also had a commitment to social responsibility, like climate change and social justice. Patagonia, in a similar sense, really advocates for environmental causes. But Ben and Jerry's in particular has always been known as a larger company that really prioritizes doing good for the world and for their community. And that commitment is really evident in their tie-dye t-shirts, for example, their activism blurbs on their ice cream, in their stores and online. And they're a really great example of a couple of buddies who had their own quirky, fun style and personality, who then transitioned their own personal story into the actual brand. So besides, the founders, Ben and Jerry, if you look at Ben and Jerry's ice cream as a brand, you already feel where that all came from. You feel the activism, you feel the community support, you feel the desire for positive change in the world. And you could just see that outside of these people, outside of knowing their personal story. Patagonia similarly, had a great founder who started the brand, who really believed in things, and then set up Patagonia itself as its own independent brand, doing its own independent thing. Their commitment to the earth has gone so far. If you guys have seen this on the news, I think it's insane and amazing. They have donated the entire company's profits to helping global climate change prevention efforts in perpetuity. They've essentially created a separate foundation where they have dedicated themselves to not taking a single dollar from the business, and all of the money is now going into a nonprofit trust fund where they can essentially just fight climate change with all of the profits from Patagonia. They are so rooted in their story that's really the crux of the business now at this point. Though, of course, you do not have to go as far as donating all of the profits from your business. I am not going to do that, as lovely as it is. You can still make change in your community in other aspects and through parts of your business. But essentially, the idea of having a strong commitment to your story helps people understand what your business is about from every angle. They know what you're passionate about, what your business is passionate about, and they can support you holistically across the board for that.
All right, so our third strategy here is brand association. Essentially, this is kind of a thing that I think that people don't necessarily think about all the time, but actually is really, really, you know, quite a strong thing when you start to think about how branding, you know, plays a role in your shopping habits. Essentially, you can really do so much to hurt or help your end goal. It's about kind of getting your products in the right places, as well as a bunch of other things. So essentially, it's not uncommon for brands to, you know, let's just, as an example, to purchase the same product from a third-party seller and essentially skin it to match their branding. So essentially selling two entirely, you know, entirely exactly the same products at two different prices and to two different demographics. And so one might sell that product for $10 and the other one sells it for $50. And essentially how their brand is being perceived is helping them along the way. So that's kind of that brand association piece. So one, you know, two exact same products, one is being perceived, you know, in this sort of higher end way, and the other one might just be a regular, you know, kind of, you know, regular store brand kind of thing. But they are actually the same product. So where those products are kind of living is that brand association piece that helps that product kind of reach that that price point. So essentially you want to try and take association into consideration when choosing shops to sell at, pop-ups to attend, and platforms to advertise with, knowing that everything carries its own sense of place and following, that essentially referring back to our good old target customer and knowing how specific that person can be about where they want that product to be, what kinds of things they want to be engaging with. And, you know, they know that essentially if your brand aligns with what that person is searching for, is the difference between them shopping and not shopping, which is really why it's so important to define your messaging and overall brand, as well as kind of keeping in mind that association's kind of like that third pillar, where, you know, knowing kind of where your brand is taking you and where people are finding your brand is essentially just as important as, like, you know, all of the other sparkly things that go along with kind of creating this brand identity.
And we personally know sometimes it's really difficult to say no to a seemingly good opportunity. So that's just sometimes being really strategic about the things that you say yes to, outside of where your brand is actually being showcased. It's a point of how much energy are you going to put into these things too. And you really want to put your energy into the things that are going to promote your brand the right way and that are going to set you up in the way that you want your business to be represented. Two, again, some of our favorite examples, which are like so on opposite ends of the spectrum, is Crocs and Rolex, to look at how they associate their brands with different people, with different partnerships. And I think that this goes to show that even at the highest level of business, you are still really strategic about exactly where you're going to be spending your energy and who you're going to be working with. So Crocs are my favorite brand association example. If anybody has been following the Stanley Cup craze that people are going to grab all their newest Stanley editions via Starbucks or otherwise. The person that's behind all that madness right now was also the person that was behind the madness of Crocs and Croc collaboration. That's the same marketing advisor that essentially was at Crocs for quite a few years, grew them to the point where they're at now, and then went over to Stanley. So the things that he's doing are obviously working, and I think Crocs are a really good place to start and to explore exactly how he did that and how he got their sales to explode. So they went from being really uncool to being so cool that just about everybody has a pair. At least in the teenage atmosphere. I know my teenage brother, every single one of his friends, everybody has them. My mom has them. I have a pair too. And this change happened within just a few years and was really widely caused by their brand association. So they got their new head of marketing. He wanted to position the brand as being much cooler. And he did that by going after some big deal celebrities, some big deal companies. He went after Post Malone, Pixar, Justin Bieber for all these limited edition releases. I mean, the list goes on for all the people that they ended up working with, but they got to a point where people had to buy their shoes. They had to get on that limited release. And it really just goes to show how strong your brand association can have an impact on your audience perception, and how it can change your audience perception by aligning with the right brands, the companies, and the partners. They didn't just align with any sort of random celebrity who said yes to them. They really tried to find the people that had a strong following of, like diehard supporters that were going to buy these products if they were cross collab, and they did. And it's just a really cool example to look on because they were really not cool. People were really not buying the products, and they really scaled up in just a short period of time. And we kind of look at something not as similar with Rolex, but in a different avenue of brand association where they are exceptionally strategic about who they partner with, because the brand is so exclusive and it's so elusive. For example, if they did a collaboration with Pixar like Crocs did, it would not land. The brand would take a hit. People would not want to be supporting this very, very expensive watch company. They instead chose partners like the Oscars and Formula One, because that's where their crowds are, that's where their clientele is, and that's where they want to continue to go after that type of clientele. Additionally, you simply can't head to any old store to go buy a Rolex. You need to head to a certified dealer or to a brand store, and their intention is to purposefully make their product less accessible to the masses to help further reiterate that their exclusivity that their brand boasts, which sounds a little counterintuitive sometimes too. If you're like, I just want to get my product everywhere and I want everybody to see it in all aspects, but sometimes that exclusivity helps lend you into a much more profitable and much more selective business. So consider where you align your business with and who you align your business with, and if it suits your long-term goals. Because if it doesn't, you can change that. That's always something that you can look back on, do some research on, decide exactly where you want to land, where you want to be. And I think it's really important to constantly keep that in the back of your head when you're like, okay, is this opportunity going to be a good one for me outside of just, myself and my financial goals? Is this going to take my business to where it needs to go? And yeah, again, we have some of our bigger examples that we really like to touch base on is Harley Davidson, Olipop, and Trader Joe's. We're just going to dive into these guys one last time with some further information with, some of the things we just touched base on a little bit earlier before we head into the workshop bit of this class. So we kind of look here on taglines, USP, brand stories, and brand associations. We are going to be developing our own taglines here. So we thought it was important to share with you a few examples of the taglines, especially looking at some of these brands that we've already been looking at. So Harley Davidson's tagline, "Live to Ride, Ride to Live," is quintessentially the heart of their brand. As always, they work to create a strong community of like-minded individuals who value the freedom, the quality, the bikes, the rebellion. And this is definitely evidenced by their tagline, as well as their USP. They definitely really want to ensure that they have quality, innovation, and a really stylish bike. If you ask any bike lover, they will always talk about how, Harley really set the precedence for a lot of these bike brands moving forward. First and foremost, that is their USP, is that they really are a unique bike brand ahead of time. You can see in their brand stories, as well as their brand associations, that they continue to kind of push forward with that idea. They have partnered up with brands like the Ford and the Leatherman for brand authentic collaborations. And a lot of businesses like Harley Davidson don't rely on brand collaborations, and that's not something that most brands do. We just kind of highlighted a couple that did some really great brand brand association stuff previously. But for a lot of these brands, they're essentially just looking at their business as a holistic package. And if a collaboration fits in every once in a while, then beautiful. Their branding is really strong, and they have a strong visual and written representation across the board, as you guys see here. And as you guys, I'm sure, have seen many a times when you see somebody wearing a Harley, driving a Harley, driving by a Harley store, you'll see it everywhere.
All right, circling back around Trader Joe's once more. So essentially with a tagline like your neighborhood grocery store, Trader Joe's has really found itself at home within the community it serves. So this is kind of an interesting thing because they have made it a point to be a physical shopping location, really honing in on that community aspect and finding ways to keep their competitive pricing, essentially removing the cost of doing business online, which is kind of unique. So Trader Joe's does have a website, but essentially just operates as a place to make a shopping list and find recipes and other fun things on their blog. So they are really kind of diving into, you know, keeping people in store so they can essentially have the business model that they want. They could very, very well, once you go on your website, you're like, this is a beautiful website. All you need to just add there is like a buy now button, and you could have that e-commerce aspect. But there's definitely a reason for them and going along with their tagline is that they really, really want to keep that community pace, keep their pricing competitive, and kind of have that in-store shopping experience. This, you know, essentially is kind of unconventional and seems less money driven, but just really part of their well thought out brand messaging that keeps their customers focused on being diehard TJ fans and coming in every week for their shopping experience.
And Olipop has really worked to not just be an elusive soda replacement, but rather an actual tangible replacement for soda that you can find just about everywhere. They're not trying to be this elusive brand that you have to dive deep to find. They want you to look on the shelf and see, oh, there's Olipop. I'm going to go with that instead of going for this Diet Coke or something instead. And their tagline, which is a new kind of soda, really perfectly encompasses that desire. Their tagline, their USP, and their brand story further kind of hone in on this, in addition to their brand association. If you think about it, it would actually be a lot easier for Olipop to focus their energy on just healthy grocery stores like Whole Foods. It's a lot less distribution, it's a lot less risk, but instead they push to just be about anywhere you can find regular soda, and their whole intention is finding their audience everywhere that they are and positioning their brand for the future to really be a true healthier soda replacement that you can find everywhere that you can find soda.
All right, so we're going to hop into the workshop portion of the class and focus on creating a tagline. So if you already have one, then great. Maybe just check in with it to make sure it still feels strong after going through the steps on the sheet and referencing kind of everything that we've been going through thus far. All right, so these are three unforgettable, essentially you couldn't forget if you wanted taglines. We just wanted to give you some examples as to, you know, what a really, really strong tagline looks like. Yours don't necessarily have to be this short or succinct, but I would say that's definitely, you know, part of the key. They are, you know, so kind of stuck into your head where they are like these particular brands woven into things you encounter every day, just through marketing, signage on the street, commercials on TV. A good tagline should almost ring in your ear, and maybe one day you'll have one that you can put in a jingle in a commercial that we all can't forget. So taglines should essentially just give us a strong sense of what you do, essentially like a one-liner elevator pitch. That's the essence of what you want your business to feel like to your customer. There's some, you know, Just Do It by Nike, Finger Licking Good by KFC, and Every Kiss Begins with K by K Jewelers. There are, you know, thousands and thousands of them out there, but, you know, I bet you're thinking of some right now, as I am. Alrighty, so, and if you want to pull out your worksheet and use this as a reference, I'm going to be referencing it through talking through the tagline creation. So essentially, the first thing you're going to want to do is start with some active buzzwords that you can essentially use to describe your business, and your services and products as well. They should be fun and active. Think about what the takeaway experience from shopping with your brand looks like. And then the next level of that would essentially be to take those words and string them together into something catchy. like finger looking good. Don't worry if it doesn't fit the first time. You kind of want to jumble them up until you have something that kind of flows off the tongue, feels good to you. And then last, you could potentially take a stab at envisioning your actual, tagline as a graphic. So maybe this becomes a secondary logo or something used visually throughout your brand. Just kind of something to have fun with. We don't necessarily expect you to have something that, right out the gate, you're like, aha, but also if you have that moment, that's great too. The worksheet will kind of break it down into a few steps. We do want everyone to spend a little bit of time on this, or if you do already have a tagline and you wanted to, let us know what it is, even if you want to drop it in the chat and we can have a chat about it. If you have any questions at all about this kind of experience of coming up with a tagline, we'd be happy to help.
And like Savannah said, when you're looking at your business buzzwords, try to make them really active, really engaging, really interesting. What we want you to do as well is to be able to reference this sheet and any other kind of text that you develop going forward for other parts of your marketing. So if you develop a couple different buzzwords that feel really strong and like they work really well with your business, you want to be able to reuse these words over and over and over again, different iterations, just so that people really understand exactly what it is that you're really trying to get across. I don't know if you guys are really familiar with a lot of it, but there has been a lot of AI advancements in, a lot of different software like Canva, or you could use ChatGPT, you could use some of the AI at TikTok. There's just a lot of different opportunities to essentially like train AI in order to help support your business goals. So what you can do in Canva now is to try to feed Canva your buzzwords and the way that you like to talk about your business, your messaging, your story, all of those good words into Canva's algorithm. And then it can actually help you develop the text and the copy for some of the marketing materials that you're going to be creating going forward. There's a lot of that moving forward now. So this is a really good opportunity to start really writing down those things that you want to hone in, that you want to represent your business. But that's a really fun one to play with if you guys haven't done it on Canva yet, is that kind of AI helper, which kind of pops up now almost anywhere that you log into. It's like, hey, I'm a robot and I'm here to help, but you guys can actually use them, to serve you best to your advantage, especially if you can teach them how to talk about your business appropriately, which is kind of the goal in learning about what words we really want to activate here. So again, make sure you guys are giving that worksheet a little bit of a go, and let us know if you have any questions. We'll kind of give you another few moments for that. And if anybody likes to share, I'd love to see what kind of stuff you're coming up with. I know that's very scary, but it is really nice. And this is also a good opportunity to look at if you have a tagline that you've been using
bad
regularly.
taglines too.
Yeah.
This is a learning space.
Yeah, we're all just having a good time.
And something I also like to always consider when I'm thinking of a tagline for my business, similarly to a business name, but even a little bit more for a tagline, is the opportunity for sort of intellectual property rights around your tagline. Every businesses are very keen on trademarking their taglines because it's something that people are saying. It kind of can be a little catchy. It gets stuck in your head. So even more so than your business, I mean, business name, absolutely. I'm not an intellectual property lawyer, but I think that, your tagline is one of those things where it's like, if you come up with something that feels unique enough that it's like trademarkable, that's like a really good, place to start.
So you definitely treat this as a brainstorming session.
Yes.
You may not come up with your trademark tagline tonight, and that's okay. But we just want to get the gears going for you, really, to kind of get you in the right vision of what do you think your business should look like.
Yeah, it's just I'm sorry, Heather, go ahead.
No, you're good.
No, I was just going to say, it's just a nice framework to kind of think about the uniqueness aspect. And like, I think that is really the important thing, is like, is it going to stick with your customer when they leave shopping with you, or if they see your marketing somewhere.
And we did leave a little section at the bottom that says envision it, for you guys to kind of draw out your logo. I'm sure a lot of you already have a logo or some iteration of a logo, and that's really fun to ensure that that is tying into the buzzwords that you're using or the tagline that you're using. And if it's not, is there a way that you can represent all of those things together in one? You can always have a secondary logo or a favicon, like a little baby logo, for example, at Bloom for our website. Our like favicon is a little flower, so it makes, and it's a flower that we created. And it showcases Bloom without saying we're Bloom. It's a cutie little thing that really kind of gets you engaged with what's going on. And we want you guys to maybe play around with that too when you're looking at the bottom of the worksheet to envision if you want to have just like a little bit of a secondary logo or a graphic element that ties well into your business that you can use going forward. You can kind of just try to sketch something out too and have fun with it.
I can relate to this, like a quick antidote. When we started Boston Women's Market, we never used BWM. And or even just like said referred to Boston Women's Market as BWM. And like I think it was around maybe year 2 where I was like, man, that's a mouthful. I want to like figure out, I want like if I abbreviate it, I wonder if it'll catch on. And like I remember when people would say to me BWM, I'm like, oh, it actually worked. Like people refer to BWM and they know what they're talking about. And so now we use the B, and I think it's pretty recognizable and associated with our brand. So
yeah, absolutely. That's
personal
funny.
tidbit.
That was funny that you
Thank
brought
you
up.
for
I feel like sometimes these things happen without you even putting them into motion. Like that actually happened with Sir Milky Quartz. I have people abbreviate the name in all sorts of ways, like, and without me even prompting. So like SMQ or Sir Milky. I had a business owner that says her and her, you know, business owner friend reference to me as Silky, like all the time. And it's just so funny how things just take on their own like life. And you know, and I think that is part of what branding is, and all of this stuff is this kind of this energy between you and your customers or the business and the rest of the world. And people are kind of, it's almost a feedback loop, you know. So you can set something up and put it out there, but then, you know, you're going to get things are going to kind of change along the way. There might be some other ideas that'll kind of pop up that you can you know, use for your business or potentially even capitalize on that are just going to kind of come from like this natural organic thing, which is really cool. So that's kind of the brilliance of branding, you know. So you're in control in some regard, but not 100%.
So if you guys want to finish up anything you have going on there, we'll pop over to the next page in just a sec. Just let us know if you have any questions. Anybody?
Yeah, feel free to also use the chat functionality if anyone had any questions or comments about anything in general too.
Absolutely.
You will see at the end of the presentation a little bit of contact information for us, but very seriously, don't hesitate to reach out if you guys are hoping to lend in, you know, just have an ear essentially to talk about what you want your tagline to be, or if you have any questions about a newsletter. Like we really are here just to kind of talk through this because like I've mentioned previously, we're really trying to do education for small businesses. So if you have a question, if you have a concern, we're happy to help because I think it'll help other people too. So with that, let's pop over to our email newsletter. So if you want to make sure that you're on that page, we're really excited because the intention behind having you complete this exercise is that we want you to leave with something tangible after this class. So that way you could use this directly for your own business marketing. And one of our personal favorite marketing avenues is email newsletters. They are free or they are really cheap, depending on where you house your email subscribers. And they really do have an excellent return on investment. This is going to be a really good exercise to start developing your brand story and your messaging a little bit further to a point where most of what you're producing feels synonymous with your brand and its desired style. So feel free to start working on this while I'm talking. You can start filling out that worksheet as we kind of are moving forward, as I know we only have so much time. But additionally, if you're already in the habit of sending emails to customers, awesome. We love that. This just proves as a good opportunity for you to really hone in on the messaging that you want to convey in your emails going forward. And for those of you without an email list, don't feel like this exercise is not for you. It is also for you. It is still applicable. And after this, we'd really recommend setting yourself up for email collection. However you normally meet your customers, whether that's online or in person, collect their emails. Any touch points that you can have with your customers are going to be beneficial. So grab those emails whenever you have an opportunity. Alrighty, your brand marketing newsletters. So just a quick couple tips here when working on them. Your copy and your visuals are equally important. Your text tells just as big of a story as your images do. And that's kind of a lot of the messaging we're trying to get behind today, is that your words really do matter. People are really finicky in what they read and what they stop reading, especially now in an age of technology where people are on TikTok and you're just scrolling, trying to catch somebody's attention. Your words really do matter. So make sure that your business has some awesome buzzwords that make people feel like they really want to engage further with your business. Getting people to not only open your emails, but then interact with them is like a little bit tricky. So that's where we really want to make sure that you have really clear, really concise messaging with a really specific call to action. You'll see that kind of phrase a lot in the next few slides, is a call to action. There's a good reason behind that. So again, emails have a really excellent return on investment, especially when you consider that most of your email subscribers are active supporters of your business. It's not like you're just advertising to random people on the internet that don't know who you are, and you have to first introduce yourself and then pull them in, and then there's all these steps to actually getting a customer to do a thing. When you have email newsletters, these people have signed up for your emails because they know who you are, they want to support your business, and they want to learn more. So you already have such a big advantage knowing who these people are and being able to contact them directly, which is why we really want to promote getting as many emails as you possibly can. So let's start deep diving into the worksheet itself and start actually filling it out if you haven't really begun doing that yet. So first and foremost, we have the subject line. So think about the types of emails that you open versus the types of emails that you don't open. And why is that? Your subject line should basically be like screaming from a billboard, read me, I'm super important. You'll miss out if you do not open me right this very second. Without actually saying that, you don't want to say that. Maybe you do, you can give it a go, but there's only so many times you could say that over and over again before your customers are like, all right, I'm not opening this email again. So think about your text being that way. It's like you want to call to action. You want to call these people to open your email and do a thing, because they might just read the subject line and pass on. So how do you make sure they read the subject line and go, ooh, I cannot pass up on this one, and they actually click on it? So it's important to think about what you want your call to action to actually be. Do you want your customers to open the email and then buy from your website because you're hosting this huge sale? Then you have to tell them that directly. You can't just send them an email and say, having a sale, check it out when you have an opportunity. We'd really love your support. And then all this text, and then they don't see what they're actually supposed to do, and they don't pay attention, and then they just scroll on to the next one. So make sure you have lots of verbiage that indicates what you want them to do explicitly. Customers truthfully appreciate a little bit of hand holding, where your call to action can be buy now, like a big button that says click here, buy now, do this thing, like very succinct, very clear, very concise. Your call to action should then additionally be supported by your body copy and your images. Of course, you want to keep your branding and your messaging strong, which is kind of how we're succincting, all this stuff together. But you really want to ensure that you have a goal in mind, and your call to action is that goal, and you want to support that as best as you possibly can. So as you're kind of filling this whole thing out, you'll look and just make sure that everything really does support your call to action at the end of the day, which is the bottom little button there.
All righty. So marketing copy, important in any kind of marketing. I would say maybe one of the most important things is what the ad actually says, or what your emails actually say. So when writing any good marketing copy or text, there are a few things to keep in mind. So essentially, you want to make sure you stay away from flowery language, be as clear and concise as possible, as to not confuse what you're really trying to say. The more confused your customer is, the less confident they are in what you are selling. Essentially, it's really hard to buy something or to buy into something that you don't understand. So you definitely want to just like lead your customers right to the finish line, be like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do here. Making sure that you use active language. So call your buyer to action. That could be with a button they have to click. So definitely just make sure to not use really passive writing, use strong active verbiage. If you essentially are being passive and you aren't even convinced that they should buy, then why should your customer buy? Don't shy away from things that indicate exactly what you want them to do, like that button I mentioned, and don't worry about being pushy. Essentially, your customer wants to be led, and they want to know how to make a purchase on, on the email that you just sent them, and they're already on your email list in the first place. So that's the thing. They've already kind of given you permission to email them. They want to know what you're doing, what you're selling. So asking them to buy is not annoying. It's also not annoying to send another email. You should be following up with your customer, whether it be through, I would say there are techniques and tactics to all of these things that don't just say, well, I'm just going to email them every, 10 times a day, the same email. There is kind of a cadence and a pacing to marketing. So you just want to kind of keep that in mind for your own business, maybe try some things out. But you should definitely be following up with your customers. It often takes a few reminders to get someone over that finish line, and customers, definitely need to hear from your brand on an average of 7 times before they purchase. So key tip, as Heather mentioned, to always be collecting emails at markets and in-person events. If that really interested buyer didn't pull the trigger and just saw you for the first time, an email is essentially the best way for you to follow up and get them into your sales funnel. So if they only saw you one time, then maybe they need 6 more emails before they buy that thing for you from you. So we're going to give you guys some time to work on this piece and ask us any questions if you have them. But I hope that you're getting the gears turning on some good marketing copy.
And as you can see too on the actual worksheet, there is a line that says audience. That's something where you can pull in from our last class where we really kind of developed our audience personas. Pick a general person that you really want to market this particular email to. You're able to send all kinds of different emails to all kinds of different customers. But if you really kind of step back into the mindset that we had last class of who is the individual that I'm going to be marketing to, what kinds of information are they going to be particularly interested in, what kinds of words are really going to trigger them. So it does all tie back together, even if we didn't necessarily mention that part just yet. You are really pulling from that audience fit that we did talk about last class. So really put yourself in their shoes. Be that individual scrolling on their phone that gets an email notification. What would make them open that email? You can look at it through your eyes as well, but if you are really trying to hone in on a specific person, you want to think about, okay, what can I do to solve a problem for this person? What can I do to excite this person, make them feel something? So that's where we want to write the audience line. How do we do this? And you can have different emails for different types of customers. If you have customers that you want to push that have been buying a skincare particular product from you, and you have different customers that buy a piece of jewelry from you, and you want to market those emails to different people, that's more than fair. And that's kind of a big thing that happens in marketing all the time, is you really split up different parts of your business to go forward for those different individuals. So make sure that you're really stepping into this person's shoes for the title, the graphic, all the good things. That all kind of ties together at the end of the day.
Yeah. And another thing to keep in mind is that, like Heather was saying, in terms of segmenting your audience and your actual email list, that's really, really valuable. And thinking about that first interaction with that customer at a market, and then now they're on your email list. It's okay to kind of send them, and actually I think it's very encouraged to kind of send them a hey, welcome, kind of email before you start getting into the really salesy stuff, because maybe they're at the very, and we're definitely going to talk about this more next class, but kind of at the top of your sales funnel where they haven't quite gotten to the point where they're almost about to buy. So you kind of want to wind down your customer a little bit, make sure that they understand what you're trying to do, make sure that if there wasn't anything that was entirely clear when they were shopping with you in person, that those, messages and kind of what you want your customer to be paying attention to becomes clearer and clearer the more they interact with your brand.
And like Kara just said in the chat that she really loves the subject line A/B split testing. That's something, if you guys aren't familiar with, that a lot of different email marketing businesses that you can kind of log into, like MailChimp and stuff like that, offer for you, that you can essentially test out different title lines and see, your click-through rate on one versus the other, and your engagement rate on one subject line versus the other. Even if it's the same exact email, you could change up a couple things here and there, and you can really hone in on, oh, okay, that sometimes it's very surprising. This is really the thing that's getting people to open the email. That's so interesting. And if you guys are familiar with using that kind of stuff on Instagram as well, they let you do a lot of A/B testing for captions now, which is something that they haven't done before. Google Ads does the same thing, where you can try out a variety variety of different buzzwords or a variety of different taglines for your business, either paid or organic marketing wise, and you can really get a feel for what is getting the most engagement. And if it's one thing in particular is getting more engagement than the other, lean into that, play with that, test that out in different avenues. Use that. That's when we say, I think last time we mentioned using data to your advantage. That's free data that you can use all the time to really use to your advantage to really help structure your brand story, your brand messaging, and your marketing.
I saw we had something come through in the chat, but I can't quite open it on my screen. I don't know if you can.
It says I sent out. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Karen.
Oh, no, it's okay. Go ahead, Heather.
Okay, sorry. It just said I sent out an email newsletter once a month with shop updates and new products, but I just used the subject line month shop update. So, January shop update. It's hard to come up with something fun, clever, and different every month. Do you have any advice for that? I think that's great. I mean, if there's anything in particular that you want to highlight, like what actually happened that month, you could be kind of like punchy and cute and interesting about it. I think that just saying January shop update in general, it alludes to what's happening, and that's really helpful. But you can even say like, you won't believe what happened to me this month, or my business is lit on fire in the month of January or whatever. I'm really just like throwing spaghetti at the wall here, but like, you know what I mean? We can really play around with just trying to get people almost think about like a tabloid, like what kind of title is on a tabloid that people are like, oh my God, George Clooney did what? And then you want to pick up the thing and read it. And then you read the article and you're like, oh yeah, okay, it's not the craziest thing, but you want to pull the like craziest aspect over there.
I always like to just think about the things that are, it's like, it's a little bit more, not clickbait, but like something that's an elegant form of that feels aligned with your business. And I think coming up with all of the buzzwords and taglines, like the really active verbiage and not the passive stuff. Like it's the stuff that's literally like, what are those, kind of like hair on fire words that we can use to get people at least interested and engaged in what we're doing. So I think it is definitely, and I see Kara's or Kara just posted something.
Yes, she uses like hop on it
Okay.
for Easter or something like really fun and buzzword wise. Like, you can go with the theme of what's going on that month, what's going on seasonally. You can just play with a lot of things. It doesn't necessarily have to feel like it's putting a title of almost like an exam or a report. Like, have fun with it, be a little bit silly. You essentially want to make people smile, and if you can get yourself to kind of crack a little bit of a smile, that's something that your customers will actually do the same too.
Yeah.
And we did have somebody also mention in the chat that they sometimes have an issue people signing up QR codes for marketing emails, because some people are not really tech savvy, especially if you often have like an older crowd of customers. So I definitely recommend it, and this was written in there too, but having a physical sign up form is a-okay. Like having all of the options, have a little scan QR code somebody can run through quick, but having a physical book, people always really respond to particularly well.
I'm just butting in here from personal experience from Boston Women's Market. There was one summer we tried to do like an electronic sign up for our email. We got like 0 newsletter subscriptions. We immediately went back to our paper and pen, and it just works. And I know like then the labor of inputting those names and email addresses are on the back end, but we get quadruple the email subscriptions just with an old-fashioned paper and pen.
Yep, absolutely. I have the same results. It works incredibly well. So much so that, I'm just like, I guess it's just what people want. And until that changes, I think that's also important just to pay attention to like what your customers want, what they're comfortable with. And I think that the QR code is an important kind of thing to recognize that it doesn't always work for everybody. And at least writing your email down on a sheet of paper seems like everyone's game for that.
We can all do that. Yeah, for sake of time, we're gonna scooch on out of here, but let us know if you guys do have any further questions on anything. Do send us an email, we appreciate it.
So we do have a vocab sheet in the back of your worksheet. You can take a view at it. If there are any words that we talked about today that you don't understand, they'll definitely be on here. And it's just good to kind of have it as a back pocket tool. So we hope you really enjoyed today and appreciate you following along on this journey in 3-part series. And we do have one last class, which is the culmination of all three, which essentially will take the tools that we learned and implement it into actually creating a marketing plan for your business. So it'll be really actionable. So we hope you can make it to that one as well.
Again, as a secondary reminder, that last class is arguably the most important, so please don't forget to join us. I know that everybody wants those actionable steps, and that's where you're going to see a lot more of that. So please definitely be sure to be there. If not, please check out the recording afterwards. And don't hesitate to reach out and chat with us if you want any feedback on the work we've been doing this class or last. We do really like to dive in further with you guys. So take a screenshot of this or take a photo of it and just reach out to us. We are Bloom Collective on anything social media wise. Do like to respond on there as well, so that works too. But thank you guys for joining us again. We really appreciate it, and we do look forward to working with you again next month.
Thank
Thanks,
you so
everybody.
much for sharing your expertise and knowledge. And thank you so much for everyone for spending your evening with us. And we will see you next month on May 2nd.
Yes,
Bye,
and thank you,
everyone.
Kara, for hosting us. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, of
Bye.
course.
Thanks for
Bye.
hosting it.
Did you talk?